You wake up because your throat feels like sandpaper. Not a nightmare, not a sound, just that dry, irritated feeling that pulls you out of sleep and makes you stand there in the dark, half awake, trying to be quiet so you don't wake anyone else. The kitchen is dead still, the kind of quiet that makes every tiny noise feel too loud. You fill a glass at the sink. The water hits the bottom with that soft, hollow clink. The microwave clock glows a dull green, and when you finally notice it, it reads 3:27 a.m. Outside, the neighborhood is black. No cars, no porch lights, no movement, just a sleeping street sealed up for tomorrow. Then the world turns white. Not headlight white, not lightning white, not somebody shining a flashlight in the window white. This is the wrong kind of brightness. The kind that erases shadows instead of creating them. The kind that makes your kitchen look brighter than midday, but it's still the middle of the night. Your glass throws a hard shadow against the cabinets sharp enough to look like it has edges. And the worst part is the silence. No boom, no rumble, no distant thunder. Just impossible light pouring in through the window while everything else stays quiet. Your brain stalls. It tries to find a normal explanation because that's what brains do. They hate the idea that life can flip in 1 second, so they search for anything that keeps the world familiar. A transformer blue, a meteor, a weird storm, a movie set. But none of those make light like this. None of those stain the horizon with a dome so bright it looks like the sky got cut open. The color shifts. White bleeds into yellow, then orange, then a thick, sick red that climbs upward like it's alive. Something in you knows what that means before you're ready to admit it. Your hand loosens. The glass slips and shatters on the tile. You don't even look down. You don't feel the sting in your feet. Adrenaline has already started rewriting your body's priorities. Because the part of your mind that filed away every documentary, every clip, every "this is what a detonation looks like" moment is now screaming one word you don't want to say out loud. Nuclear. And here's the part that matters. If you're far enough away to still be standing, the first threat isn't the blast itself, it's what comes next. That silence isn't safety, it's a countdown. A pressure wave is already racing across the landscape toward you. You can't see it, you can't hear it yet, but it's coming. And most people lose this moment right here, before anything even hits them, because they do the most human thing possible. They watch. They step closer to the window like the glass is a screen and they're trying to understand the plot. That instinct feels harmless. It isn't. Your eyes want information. Your body wants certainty. Your brain wants to witness what just happened because it feels unreal, and you want to make it real. But the window is not a safe place. Not now. The window is the trap. It's glass. Glass doesn't break. Glass becomes shrapnel. When the pressure wave arrives, windows don't politely crack. They fail all at once. They explode inward. Thousands of sharp fragments move horizontally through living rooms, kitchens, hallways, any space with line of sight to the outside. That's the ugly secret. A lot of survivors aren't killed by the big dramatic part. They're shredded by the normal parts of their house, in the worst possible spot. So if you're still at the sink, still staring at that wrong light, this is your moment to snap out of it. Step away from the window. Do not go outside. Do not press your face to the glass. Move inward. The goal is mass and distance. Concrete if you have it. Earth if you have it. The lowest, most interior spot you can reach fast. Basement if you have one. If you don't, you want an interior room with as few windows as possible. A bathroom, a closet, a hallway corner. This is where the panic wants to split your house into separate little islands. One person upstairs, one person downstairs. Everyone confused, asking questions, wasting time. Basement, now, move, don't look, don't ask. You're not being rude, you're buying seconds that can keep someone's face out of a glass storm. You call their names. Your voice sounds wrong in your own ears, too loud, too urgent, like it belongs to someone else. Footsteps upstairs, doors opening, confused voices. Sleepy, scared faces appearing in the hallway, squinting at that orange glow that has no right to exist at 3:27 a.m. They want explanations. You don't have time. You heard them down. And while you're moving, you feel it in your bones, the real fear, the kind that doesn't shout, it just settles in. That's what makes it so cruel. Far enough to survive the flash, close enough to get hurt by what follows. If you got a basement, you use it like it was built for this, not as a cozy hideout. As shielding. You get everyone low and inward, away from the small basement window if there is one. You put them against an interior wall, not under the window line. If you can grab one heavy blanket or comforter on the way down, do it. Not because it stops a pressure wave, but because dust and debris can fill the air fast, and covering faces helps when the house starts shedding drywall and insulation. Then you do the hardest thing. You wait. Waiting feels like doing nothing, and doing nothing feels wrong when your body is screaming to act. But there's nothing you can do to stop what's coming. There's only positioning. Your kid's breathing is fast. Your spouse's hand finds yours. Somebody whispers, "What is it?" And you don't answer because you don't want to lock the word into the room. Upstairs, the house still sounds normal for a second. A refrigerator hum, a click, the tiniest creak of wood settling. Because you still haven't heard the sound, which means it was far enough away that you got a warning, but close enough that you're still in the damage zone. A deep building roar, like thunder that forgot how to fade. It grows instead of ending. It fills the air. It gets inside the bones of the house. Then the house moves. Not a cute shake, not a rattle. It shifts. Wood groans. Something heavy crashes upstairs. The structure complains in a language you've never heard before. And the window, wherever it is, does what glass does in a blast. It detonates. You hear it like a gunshot made of crystals. A spray across the floor. A sharp rain of fragments. If anyone had been standing near it, you already know what the outcome would be. That's why you moved. That's why you didn't watch. Then the second punch lands. Then the second punch lands. The world gets quieter in a different way. The hum of appliances stops. The little background noises vanish. It's not just the power went out. It's the feeling of systems dying. If there was an electromagnetic pulse associated with the event, it can knock out electronics in the grid over a wide area. Even without that, a blast and cascading failures can still take power down. Either way, your house goes truly still. Dust starts to drift down from above. That dry, chalky smell of insulation and old wood fills the basement air. And now your brain tries to sprint ahead to the next fear, fallout, because the flash and the wave were only the opening. Fallout is the part that punishes curiosity later. It's the part that makes people step outside too soon, breathe the wrong air, touch the wrong dust, drink the wrong water. But here's the thing. That's not your first move. Your first move after the shock wave is still discipline. You do not rush upstairs. You do not throw open doors. You don't start wandering around the house checking damage like it's a weekend project. You listen. You check your people for obvious injuries. You keep everyone together. You stay out of windows. If your basement has a small window and it broke, you cover it as best you can with whatever you've got. Cloth, plastic, anything. Not because it seals perfectly, but because it reduces drifting dust and debris. You stay low. You keep breathing slow. Your kid finally asks the question that always comes next. Is it over? And you want to say yes so badly, because yes feels like a life raft. But you don't know. You don't know if there's another detonation coming. You don't know what direction the wind is pushing whatever rises into the sky. You don't know if the roads are intact, if hospitals are functioning, if your phone will work, if water pressure will last. So you don't lie. You say the only honest thing that keeps people steady. We're safe right now. Stay with me. Because the immediate win is simple. You survived the first minutes. You didn't get turned into a statistic by a window. You didn't run outside. You didn't freeze at the glass. Because the immediate win is simple, and that's not the end. But it's the difference between having a chance and never getting one. Above you, the house is damaged, not dead. Outside, the orange glow still pulses against the sky like the night has a wound. And you realize with a heaviness that's hard to describe that what just ended wasn't only sleep, it was normal. The next chapter isn't measured in seconds. It's measured in hours, then days. And your job now is the same job it was the moment the world turned white. Stay calm, stay inside, stay off the windows, buy time.